angles are known quantities. We're on to the Rift, and different win conditions for both teams, but I feel AXIZ are easier to execute, even if Burning Core, I feel, draft to what their players can do.
In the battle of who's kept it the most simple, does feel like it is AXIZ. Okay, so this was a level 1 from Dicey. That's where the ward came from. Right, so he wasn't spotted out either, so Burning Core don't know that they've had their jungle start tracked. Dicey manages to get in, get out, and that's all well and good. And speaking of Dicey, their lane partner, actually, no, we're not speaking of Dicey. Speaking of their lane partner, Sangchi has a cull. So does Yuhi. Both these bot lanes are going to be scaling up. We saw that Yuhi has built this item a couple of times on the Sivir now at this point. And I think that goes a lot to show the mentality of both these teams. These AD carries, they're going to be scaling up. They don't want to be involved in the game just yet. These bot lanes are not going to be the drawing the eye of the metaphorical Sauron in terms of the impact of this game that the junglers can potentially have.
Imagine if we had a Rift where it actually wasn't metaphorical, just Sauron eyes on top of every turret.
Just load into the Rift and
I see you.
You think I don't have this stuff ready? You think I don't have this stuff ready?
I gave you that soundboard, or at least the what's it called? The button thingy.
Stream Deck. Yes, Stream Deck. I do use it through that. It's very fun. The thing is, though, like what I've come to find with it is that I need to use it so little that you don't expect it. And then it has more impact when I do. It's, yeah, less is more sometimes. More is more for both these teams, though. They'd really like another win. You need to really make sure you're leaving your impact on this game. And
that's a heavy AI vote.
It's a heavy AI, but remember, this one is based on champion picks.
Sure.
And I think when you're looking at something like a Fiora, which is, particularly in the LJL, not great. We haven't had a lot of successful Fiora players outside of Ebby. Oh, that's an interesting graph, though. In the hyper late game, Burning Core's comp, according to Blitzcrank saying, ends up winning. Now, that's really interesting, because I think for me, that comes down to actually more macro rather than it does about the actual champions themselves, because if you can get to an objective at the right time and force Fiora away from a winning side lane, that kind of gets awkward. Whereas on the other side, if you kind of like dither about, you don't really get the right angle, then yeah, someone like Fiora really can tear you apart.
And especially if you go with like a Gore Drinker on the Fiora, then, you know, suddenly you got a bit more options to team fight later. The Sivir has all those items and all those ways to keep her safe. And that suddenly gets a bit trickier. And like at that point, when the damage becomes a little bit hard to deal with, as Flawless aggressively looking for the invade, scouted or not, will back away to look at this Scuttle Crab instead. But they'll know that everyone is over there on that Scuttle Crab. See what Flawless can get done on the Vi. You know, Blank had a pretty good Vi game last time around. Got the solo kill on Steel when he was fighting over that Scuttle Crab. We saw some good return plays, but we didn't see the Vi get to be proactive, unpunished in the last game. And I do want to see more out of this RE Vi combo that we know can be so deadly.
Well, this time you at least have pushing lanes, right? In fact, you've got pushing lanes across the board. Flawless got options. Just whether they can actually end up pulling that trigger. They haven't managed to steal any jungle camps, haven't been able to force anyone off of waves. In terms of having this prio and a jungler which can use it, Burning Core haven't gained much from it so far. Maybe they can look for a bit of a scuffle around this mid jungle.
I think what they can with that one is they are going to find themselves fighting for these Scuttle Crabs, and Flawless continues to be as obnoxious as possible. Like, this has been a player who has tried very hard to carry for the team to mixed success. Don't get me wrong, but I've never doubted the man's willingness to try and make sure that he is finding individual advantages in a game.
Yeah, and we've seen this playstyle crop up across a couple of teams where you are playing pushing lanes, you're just trying to get your jungle ahead and keep the enemy jungle down as well. But this, again, hasn't led to too much, right? We're talking about a lot of small things right now. Not all the small things, because we're not Blink-182.
No.
Yes.
Pick or no. It's an AXIZ evolution. Throw that one out there.
Oh, welcome to Pop Punk Week on the LJL. What else you got for me?
What Fall Out Boy references can I make right now? My picks know what you did in the dark, because we have vision and you didn't.
No, see, my picks knows what you did. That just sounds like his Lulu singing it.
I know he's on this game. Yeah.
My picks knows what you did in this.
Just this horrified face on Lulu's like sprite.
We need like
what monsters are you?
And then this is only leading into like maybe then Lulu goes into like the emo phase and we have like goth Lulu.
Joining
goth Addy and emu moo.
Oh,
Shogath Eat World.
I love it.
Well, for all we set this up for, maybe the junglers could do something early. That was mainly in the case of Vi, and I'm now looking at Burning Core and I'm like, well, you haven't done anything with the Vi, so get ready to fight an objective, so you're probably going to lose. That's what I'm looking at. I think AXIZ are really happy with this because maybe with a strong level 6, you can get like an REVI pick onto someone just before an objective. But based on the champions which are on the table, when nothing happens early, I'm pretty sure AXIZ feel okay about that.
I think they do as well, and you can see there's a back from Yellow Yoshi already, but Ray Farkey's managed to get to 50 odd CS without having to back himself, so can find a really healthy back looking at something like an Iron Spike Whip or what other option he decides to go towards. I could see a more aggressive Divine Sunder or something, or maybe even a Trinity Force if he fancied the 1v1 a little
Sunder
more.
has been nerfed at this point.
True,
14,
that's
I believe. So Sunder is like, it's good for sustain. It's still good against anti-tank stuff, but something like Triforce is just really, really annoying to deal with. And when you have something like a Conqueror and Vital Procs on Fiora, who cares about any of that Mythic Burst stuff? Get a cull on the Fioras. Like, I saw that, I had to chuckle because I was like, yeah. You know what's happening. It's a slow game. Everyone's buying culls. Culls in this game are going to be at a premium.
Yeah, and especially if this Fiora can just passively get advantages from laning, you feel pretty happy about it. And right now, it'll be an early Dragon start by AXIZ potentially, but it is spotted by that control ward in the back of the pit. Dice and Flawless are around, and Sanctuary and Dicey need to be a bit wary about going forward. Dicey's gone in. Well, Battle Dance out there is Swamp. Remember, he doesn't have his ultimate available. They're still thinking about trading this one out regardless. A 3v3. Nothing else comes out of that aside from a little bit of posturing, should we say, from both sides.
These teams are not ready to fight yet. They're not ready to fight. We are waiting for a little bit longer. Maybe around the Herald we'll see some ultimates pull, but when you're playing Herald against an Ornn, even that gets a little bit dangerous. So yeah, I mean, we've had a point where, yeah, waiting to scale. There we go.
Yeah, I do want to point my eyes, well, that this is Fujimoto's Tahm Kench, because Fujimoto hasn't always been the starting support for this team, but we know that his Tahm Kench got a lot of our approval in spring. We know this guy's very good at it, and it does feel that this lane so far has been pretty well matched, and that's great news for Burning Core, who the last time out we saw just passively dropping CS they shouldn't have been. I'm feeling a little bit happy about how this is going right now.
I mean, on the other side as well, in terms of AXIZ, I mean, you had Ozka in the mix for a long time. I believe Dicey was unwell for a little while.
That's very true,
back. So Dicey's actually come back as well. So both these supports trying to have been ousted from their starting positions at points in this split, and they've made their way back onto the main roster. Both these teams have had some roster shifts as well, just in general, and they've just been trying to find that chemistry, which has been lacking a little, of course. Burning Core and AXIZ kind of had their mojo at the very start of spring. First round robin, both these teams found success in different ways. And they've really not found that since, sadly, for either team. Maybe they can pull it together just at the end to get themselves just into playoffs. One of these teams will inevitably make it because V3 are very much locked out of that point. But it's going to be a little while before we find that again. This game's been slow and Flawless has done this thing where he's hopped it out of vision.
Cease and desist. Vault Breaker's going to be there. There will be an Emperor's Divide, but I think he might be too little too late. Dice trying to get a hold of him, but here's the turnaround because Dicey was around. Still has that Spirit Rush available. May well need to use it. Gets just out of dodge, and no one dies. Well-timed roll from Dicey keeps his mid laner alive.
Yeah, but this is the Vi thing. Vi just keeps hopping out of vision. Has a flash this time. See if he can end up extending that Q range. Megaman has a flash. We'll need to be quick on it, though.
To think about it, won't decide to go for it and gets out without going further in. And you're right, it is that Vi trick. Just hop over the wall. No, you got the control ward in there, so that bush is off vision. And make sure to make some aggressive plays. We'll force Megaman back at this point as well. And that leaves us with a slight advantage, at least from lane right now, from Burning Core, and with Swamp backing away, we might see a Herald start here from Burning Core's jungle.
You know, one of the things which we've talked a little bit on broadcast is how when the LJL goes international, often the team which is there has really good early game stats. And we sit there, as people who've watched the region, and go, well, sadly, that's no surprise, because no one else does anything early. Like, we're 10 minutes in, no one's died, and we've had a couple of flashes blown. That's kind of it. And this really does, again, sell the picture of the LJL. If I were to kind of picture the LJL, it would be this very slow, methodical, fight around dragons, fight around objective setups. Actually, honestly, the fact that we have a side laning champion in this game is kind of anathema to the LJL. It's been a little while since we've had anyone but Ebby that would go towards that style because of multi-language difficulties in teams, making it hard to know when people are rotating. But both of these teams are showing us the classic LJL style in terms of not really doing much early, but Burning Core at least have themselves a bit of a curveball in that.
Flawless will flash for the Vault Breaker cease and desist, but here's the turnaround! Everybody was there. They were trying to make the pick in time for the Herald, but instead AXIZ punished incredibly hard. Dicey is just there again.
You I don't know what you're doing there. At that point, you don't have vision on the other side. It feels a little bit desperate, a little bit hasty, and burning core. This was just not the right way to make this play. You know the Herald's on the table. There are likely going to be rotations at that point. Sure, Sanctuary is still locked in towards that bot side, but the damage isn't there from this combo with this initiation. Burning Core, they throw away themselves a stable map state and give AXIZ a freebie.
Gonna see whether they can punish here on the way out. As Dice pops the ultimate, trying to get in range. We'll look for an exhaust. We'll look to try and get the charm, but it's well buffered out from Fujimoto. Can't find the Abyssal Dive, but can find the flash for the Tongue Lash and the Devour onto Yellow Yoshi. He's got nowhere to go. They'll get the pick, and Ray Farkey gets that kill. So at least something of a trade back, and they'll likely get a turret plate or two here to boot.
Yeah, well, you've given up the Heralds. You know that's going to come down at some point. At least Burning Core gets something on the offside of this play, on the exit from it. So Fiora going to get themselves a kill, going to get themselves several plates. That's fairly important as far as things go. So what's the setup to this play? Again, Herald's on the table. You've got the Ornn, which can follow up from just about anywhere. And this is why we're saying, look, if nothing happens early, at least we'll see some ultimates thrown around the Herald. And when they get thrown, when an Ornn's in the mix, you tend to lose at Herald. The only other champion which really kind of matches him at that, something like Renata that's somehow got level 6 from support rotations or whatever. But Burning Core, I feel like they misjudged the power of their team at this point compared to the power of AXIZ, and they get punished for it.
Yeah, and, you know, like, credit to Yellow Yoshi there as well. I praised Dicey for making his way into that fight. But honestly, it was Yellow Yoshi on the reset that wasn't respected from Burning Core. They knew where Megamin and Dicey were. They knew Sanctuary was in the bot side, and I thought, this should be an easy enough pick. And unfortunately for them, Yellow Yoshi was right there when they needed him to be, and helps get that kill and helps get the Herald. Of course, does still come at a little bit of a cost on the exit, as we said. But for now, at least AXIZ with the initial team fight win.
Nothing we've got to keep track of is both these AD carries pretty even with each other. Both popped culls, so they're going to be a little further ahead of the pace of the game, considering that. Well, no, in terms of the pace of the game, a lot of the time you look at someone who's got a lot of kills and you think, oh yeah, they're just ahead of where they should be at this point in the game. Cult kind of artificially does that in a slow game. I think both these AD carries kind of getting quite a lot from that point. Flawless going back towards mid. This is the combo.
I'm going to try and get that one into the Everfrost afterwards. There's the charm, and now Flawless on the wrong side. They'll shuffle him away, but a flash forward for an auto means Flawless gets it with the burn of his smite.
Megaman doesn't have the shield at the end of it from the shifting sands, so goes down. Okay, Flawless. Dice, who said, yeah, they don't really have much engage, but this combo, they can do something very Hawks-like of them. Oh my word, that's
that was an interesting Abyssal Dive. Please just fine. Not actually as much damage as they're hoping as Yuhi, keeping Sanctuary out. Does a lot of damage, and good God! Not quite enough to get it, and of course there's no Immortal Shield Bone. The Kraken Slayer is complete for Yuhi on the other side, but now Yuhi's got a flash and a ghost. You had to use both here, gets knocked up though, and no spell shield available, gets shoved backwards. Will not quite trade it with the Boomerang Blade. Worthy attempt from Yuhi, but despite trying to force off the AD carry with the item advantage, cannot keep the jungle support in the river long enough.
And the thing which keeps coming up in my head at this point is Burning Core, they're making plays based off of assumptions. They assume around the Herald that maybe someone's not there in time to engage. Yuhi, similar things. I assume that I have enough time to get this play towards bot side because they see so many people in river. This is when, you know, the Tahm Kench kind of dives in and Yuhi's got the wave pushed and thinks, okay, all right, I have a Kraken Slayer, maybe we can make something work with this. But it's just incorrect calculations from Burning Core. The information just isn't quite there.
And you can see on the mini-map, that was Vi and Tahm Kench going the wrong way. They went towards mid lane, and so there was no support incoming. And yes, a lot was burned to secure the kill, but secure the kill they do.
Eventually. So, Sanctuary gets an assist based out of that one. Swamp is now on a kill and an assist. And I guess this would be a correct time to kind of look back and say, right, what happens when the game does slow down again? What's happened in this game so far, and who does it favor? The answer is not an awful lot. The gold is still fairly even with each other. You can see most players are fairly even with each other too, besides, you know, the top lane advantage. I feel like if this game continues being slow, AXIZ are happy with it. At least Burning Core, if it keeps working, why not, right?
He's got no shifting sands. He gets charmed. Over the wall they go, and Megaman dies again. This combo is so frustrating.
It's very frustrating, but this is the place where Burning Core do have vision. And this is the point where, yeah, you do hop over those river bushes and things get awkward for them, and AXIZ are not in position to protect their Azir. So while they are happy to wait and scale and get into teamfight relevancy, Burning Core have found an area of weakness from AXIZ, and Megaman, the one remaining member of this roster, which did so well last year, were one of our top teams, has been starting to get pulled apart.
Lightning Crash for On the Hunt, trying to trade this one out. Good spell shield means Dicey takes a lot of damage and can't get the knock-up. They will trade that one out all the while as Brave Farky gets first turret, knowing what's going on. And this Fiora, Divine Sunderer or not, doing just fine in this lane. Swamp will start up the Dragon on the other side, though. But this is 16 minutes in for first Dragon. That's great news if you're Brave Farky, because it means you don't have to come and join the team fights anytime soon.
That is, you know what? Sometimes we're just on the same wavelength. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like,
I got you.
We actually haven't had an objective fight yet. We've had a couple of skirmishes, like, just before things. We've not really had an objective fight. So that's a Herald and a Dragon over to AXIZ, but it's not early stacking. We have a Hextech Dragon coming up next. We're not even onto our third Dragon, right? So Burning Core, they're happy. I think they're happy with that. As much as AXIZ are happy with the game being slow and methodical and getting in towards team fights, Ray Farky, at least on the other side, if we're going to revise that output, is okay and just saying, well, we're not going to get forced to a team fight for a little while. Maybe that's what actually ends up determining it in the favor of Burning Core if this game falls that way.
Yeah, you can see the pick combo between this mid-jungle Bash Bro options of the Ahri and the Vi continues to be a nightmare for Mega Man, who's definitely wishing he had a little bit more support to secure vision around his mid lane. Finally get a few wards in, but all the while, this Fiora, as we said, getting free time to scale, free time to go forwards, is nearly cashing in the cull. We'll always have a good option into this Orm with the Divine Sander, even if it is not that Trinity Force we were maybe hoping for.
So this second Herald's actually fairly important for AXIZ. So we've kind of... Oh, okay, Ray Farky. Just make sure he gets a couple of things under towers. Yeah, and he's gone towards that Divine Center. So, yes, it is going to be more about that anti-tank shredding sustain on the side lane. But if AXIZ get the second Herald and they break up a mid lane turret, that gives them the ability to get mid-pro, to get towards these objectives easier. And that will be very important because the way that you are going to win this game as AXIZ is forcing those team fights and forcing this Fiora out of side lanes. Getting stuff like towers to give yourself better objective setup helps you with that. So, AXIZ, the flowchart is get mid Herald, break up in the map, use that to make it easier to fight for objectives in the future. That's why it's important. Can Burning Core stop it?
And all the while, Yellow Yoshi is about to find himself on the recipient of a potential dive for that ward just into the entrance of that blue side jungle. Will have spotted Flawless was there, and that will also give a... Tell me that wasn't stolen.
That was bloody close. I think it does go over. It does. You see it in the inventory, but I saw the 5 gold pop up. I'm like, hang on a second.
My days. I was to say, with that with the second half of the Orb of Deception, I was like, if that had been a steal, I would have been very upset. Ray Farky, though, does get the second outer turret. Mid lane will be the price, though, and as you said, that might make it a bit easier to force those fights.
Right, so it's open side lanes for Burning Core. So you're not going to get any more tower gold, but you're going to be able to push in and get some angles towards objectives. So the question is now, AXIZ, they needed this Herald to open up the map a little bit so they could start shoving in mid lane with something like their Azir, something like their Zeri, so they can get, again, better setup towards those objectives. That forces Burning Core's hand, and it means that AXIZ can play towards the strength of their composition. Question is that enough now with the open side lanes which Burning Core have managed to buy themselves with this Fiora? That's the push of balances in this game. That's what we're really looking at.
Yeah, and also, because of the way this bot duo works, you don't need the jungler necessarily there to support them as well, because between the On the Hunt and the Devour, and the wave clear of Sivir at this point, they're pretty okay to just collect waves here and try and make sure Flawless and Dice can roam towards the sideline and hunt whichever opponent Ray Farky is against and continually make picks in these long lanes best they can. Now with the Ravenous Hydra complete on this Fiora, maybe look towards him.
No, Mega Man, no,
Here we go again. The moment we talk about it, he's just going to die. There's nowhere to go. He'll get a shove, and it's just too late. Again, the CC chain is utterly unreal.
I'm going to say this now because I know it'll just protect my sanity. You are playing through your mid-jungle to get kills onto this Azir, and you're stacking a Dark Seal. Dice, you need a Magize, buddy. Like, if that's the way you're playing, you need to be He's got a Vengeance on his.
Okay.
I look at this and I think you should be snowballing at this point. By the book. I think if you get to punish this Azir on cooldown, that is the play pattern which maybe allows you to get those picks before objectives, which again are very dangerous towards AXIZ's composition. Regardless of just your Fiora being a really annoying champion in side lanes, if you get to pick people off before they get to the objective, or in those side lanes as this mid-jungle duo, that gets very dangerous for them. Burning Core, at least they're able to punish Mega Man a number of times with this and give themselves another way to potentially win this game.
Course could still convert that one ring into a Magize. No, I'll save the little Lord of the Rings reference I've got with that for when it comes through. But for now, or if it comes through, otherwise it's a bit of a waste. We'll see whether he goes towards it. But Flawless and Dice have been making so many proactive plays. It's been great to see. And Ray Farkey has passively won his lane as well, got that kill as well with a little bit of assistance. And they are pretty happy in the game in terms of their win conditions are online. And with that delay on how long a soul will be away from happening, I think Burning Core, as long as they can keep this one from happening, feeling pretty okay. I wonder if they might even try to fight for this dragon. Might be a little risky.
Remember what we set down? He said getting that mid lane out of turret was important to AXIZ so they could get set up for objectives easier. But with Ray Farkey having long lanes, that works against AXIZ. So this is going to be a fight over mid prio. If AXIZ can shove it in beyond that wreckage of the mid tower, that works for them. But again, you can see how Burning Core have made their own advantage and said, yeah, well, we have a Fiora, which is certainly not helping things. And now we have behind enemy lines on both sides. We've switched sides of the map.
But they have gotten a Azir turret. The Sun Disc is up, and that will be a home away from home for now. But they are split up, and look at Yelioshi on the side. No vision as yet, but there is an Ornn ult to be absolutely devastating. Flawless goes over the wall, though. Can the riposte come through? Quickness at the grand entrance. Burning Core have chosen to fight. Shoved away. Devoured his Flawless. Yelioshi taken low. No one on the side of Burning Core quite yet. Gets stuck into the wall and doesn't die. The stopwatch from Flawless keeps him there. Dice gets forward. Again, the resets come through. A double to Yuhi. Ray Farkey gets Mega Man, and what despite looked to be a massive fight for AXIZ just does not work out. Stopwatches galore, Baron's alive, and Burning Core smash the fight.
Oh, a disastrous fight for AXIZ on the other side of it. Burning Core, they're very wily about this. Again, this comes down to this mid priority. It comes over fighting for these waves. It comes for these setups for these objectives. Both teams are aware of this, which is why they're doing this weird kind of switcheroo in where they're playing. But this is such a weird fight from AXIZ because, yeah, they get onto the targets here, but Sanctuary is not hitting targets right now. Mega Man hasn't got soldiers hit up, and I look at how Flawless gets into the mix here, and he does a really good job of making sure that Mega Man and Sanctuary aren't just totaling the backline when this comes through, which actually means that Yuhi is getting way more damage than Sanctuary in this fight. Because of the act of the jungler from Burning Core means that the damage just doesn't come through from AXIZ.
And that Call of the Forge Guard only landed onto Fujimoto. The tank riposted on the other side, and then suddenly Flawless and Dice with the gold lead and the mobility and utility options they had can just be so aggressive with the lead, and you got to free fire. There's a GA now on this Vi who popped a stopwatch before.
But that's only the second. That's only the second most important item completion. Ladies and gentlemen, cash in your library cards here. Medjai's Soul Stealer picked up for Dice. Again, I think this is a core item on Ari. I will preach every time this thing has showed up, every time Ari's in the game. And in this game, if you're now Mega Man on a side lane, every time you die, it weighs double. It weighs so much. So AXIZ, they have to deal with the Baron coming in. They have to deal with any pick being disastrous for them. While this team does have wave clear with the Azir, you can't hold your distance well enough at this point. And Burning Core, in the game which could seal them playoffs and lock AXIZ out of it, Burning Core have a strong advantage.
One ring to stack them all, one ring to find them, one ring to find them all, and in the Medjai's bind them, has managed to get himself well and truly online. Sauron and all of his power is there. That's going to be the grand challenge thrown down onto Ray Farkey. Riposts that attempt with the Call of the Forge God, still tanking out this one pretty well. Here comes the teleport in. So might get the kill. The exhaust is going to come through, not quite. Does finally fall, but here comes Dice trying to get the kill at the back end of this. Can't quite land it. And actually, that'll be the teleport pop and the important kill. Baron buff taken away, but all the while, there will still be a tower in this bot side falling. And at least a pick for AXIZ to stop the onslaught of Burning Core.
Yeah, they're losing some towers. What that means is that it's not going to be like a game-ending play. I think if you lose on that top side fight where Ray Farkey actually manages to kill someone, pop the ult healing after that point, Dice travels in. Effectively, at that point, the game ends because you've lost enough people in the defense against the Baron buff that you don't have an ability to stay around after that point. The waves are going to crash in uncontested. So AXIZ, they lose something, but it's not the worst case scenario. Gonna go back to this replay, see what happens, because Ray Farkey, he's really strong at this point. The Sundra gives him a whole lot of sustain alongside the Ravenous Hydra too, and that's a pretty good double stop on the a lot of the CC, but there's 3 CC members there. The Fiora just doesn't have time to free hit, and they managed to time out the Grand Challenge just enough. I actually think that Dice could have dove in a little deeper there. You know that W's not available. I think you can dash in. You have Azonia's too, but maybe we're a little bit worried that no teammates were coming around and chooses to take the safe option and not flip it.
Does indeed. Swamp at least secures the red buff there as well. And Ray Farkey, I think if that exhaust hadn't come down, that would have been a dead on. You can see the
I agree.
gold advantages here. Big discrepancies in all roles right now.
Yeah, and you are really looking at AXIZ at this point as thinking, well, this was about whether you could make it about the grouped up team fights. And the one grouped up team fight you had, you got stomped. Burning Core played it better. Your angle was not good enough in that fight. So AXIZ dying with a little bit of a whimper rather than a bang towards the end of this game. They had their one moment to shine, and that was okay. Megaman looking for the pick. Doesn't quite get it.
Worthy attempt, but the Vault Breaker comes through, and then the S moves from Flawless, who's definitely having fun with this game. He and Dice really broke open the mid lane and gave Rayfarki all the time in the world to hit the break point he's hitting. He's nearly what looks to be something like a Death to Dance third here as well to continue the pressure he's already got.
That'll be a Steraks actually with that one.
Oh, good point.
I'm pretty sure with that coming through. I'm trying to remember if that build is doing anything else either. But Flawless, just making sure that he's up in the enemy jungle, much like the very first few waves of the game. Lots of pushing lanes. Jungler that can really abuse it. AXIZ just have to sit and wait and hope they can find picks. But they tried to look for it with Megaman's ultimate, didn't end up working out. And AXIZ, they are so far behind in gold now. They are very much in danger of just not finding anything left in this game.
Rayfarki has level 16. They're going to try and trade this one out anyway. Big jump back into the volcanic rupture. Call of the Forge God is there. He's knocked up, knocked down. 2 picks now onto the Fiora. But what a cost does it come at? They sent so many members here. It'll at least be a mid lane tier 2.
That's going to be it. So it's a kill for a tower. It's going to be a dragon spawning just now. But Dicey trying to find an angle and loses half his HP for it. One of your primary initiators now doesn't have the health to fight for the dragon.
Oh, that charm lands onto Megaman. We'll at least get a teleport here to come in. But 2 members chunked out. At least there is a teleport available for the Azir.
Wait, those ricochets could stop the Azir back.
Oh,
so close.
Not quite. One final charm is well timed out, and Megaman's still going to not have the back stopped. Doesn't feel like he can back away. Dicey on the side. Does manage to get in, but there's a devour away, and Fujimoto keeps his AD carry alive.
See if they can maybe turn this around. You know that Dicey doesn't have cooldowns. Oh, Yellow Yoshi charm back in.
Well buffered by Yellow Yoshi with the Bellows Breath and the Searing Charge, but they're just forced out of the mid lane. They don't win the grouped up fights right now either, it feels like.
Bit of a gold diff. And also, if you're not hitting the Sivir who's hit 3 items, you are going to start losing the DPS battle too. Yes. And the one big grouped up fight that we saw one of the reasons why I really like Sivir into Zeri. It feels like Sivir in some ways is a better version than Zeri, especially if you're both auto-attacking. It's a little harder for Sivir to stick to the targets, a little harder, but it's still fairly easy to do so because Zeri is just very easy to keep doing damage, right? It's kind of a like saying that, oh, it's harder to do damage than a Zeri. It's like, well, yeah, because she's the easiest AD carry to deal some damage within the game. But in this one, yeah, Yuffie has been the player putting out more damage. Rarely do we see that from this player, especially against someone like Sanctuary, who has, on the whole, had a very good season. But in this game where everything is on the line, has been struggling to make it count.
Eyes on the inventory, has finally completed the Lord Dominic's Regard, has got a Blood Ward upgrade courtesy of Yellow Yoshi's Haunter. That's great news. But on the other side, you know, that Sivir is now remaining 4 items. It's a Hull Breaker, not a Sterax for Rayfarki as well. So that means that all these 3-man ganks become a little harder to pull off again. 3 items on Fiora's forever been that break point, level 16 as well. Yes, you've killed her a couple times, but it's always been a bit of a high investment to make it happen.
Yeah, well, the hull being broken in this one is the one of the SS AXIZ. It was slowly sinking beneath the waves. And I'd love to keep saying, oh, they can look for picks, they can wait for the grouped up fights. But the truth is, they're just way too far behind at this point. This is a very difficult game for them to win. They're waiting for mistakes. Maybe this can be one of them, but the Steadfast Presence timed out. And that's it. You've grouped up, you've committed resources to one side of the map, and you're going to get pushed in on everywhere else.
Yeah, Dice is up here, Rayfarki's on the other, and the 1-3-1 is well and truly enacted. And Ari and Fiora are pretty tricky champions to lock down, especially with the items they have right now. Great charm from Dice as well to make sure Yellow Yoshi doesn't have the easiest time of it. There is Dicey, but of course, Flawless is there to back up the mid laner. Their synergy this game has been much part of what's got Burning Core this lead. And I suppose at this point, you're waiting on maybe another item even on Sanctuary. He's going towards this Bruise rebuild, which is coming back into fashion again, but I just don't know whether it's enough to keep him alive.
Well, I mean, you say that, right? I mean, it's just, effectively, Bruisery is just like, you go for a shield bonus that doesn't look like a Kraken. That's basically
well, I mean,
it,
there's a Titanic Hydra 4th as well. That's been
well,
what we saw last game as well.
Well, what we'll see with this one is probably going to be the Infinity Edge 4th. You just need it. Like, you need it at this point. I think, like, unless you're going for prime damage, I don't think you ever win fights. And you see that BF sword dropped in, that's
Bingo.
probably going to be it. And like, it's a bit different when you're playing something like a Cogmore. But even so, Cogmore, Vayne, Zeri, stuff that people that do build the shield blow, part of the reason for this, and just to get a little bit nerdy about the maths, is effectively because you get so much bonus HP from the mythic stat. Oh, Flawless, he's caught, but yeah,
Gets devoured, has to
But-
flash.
Effectively, Titanic Hydra does damage based on your bonus HP, and because a lot of the mythic stat for that item has been buffed towards giving you a lot of bonus HP the more items you have, yeah, getting something like a Titanic Hydra later into the game actually gives you a lot of AoE damage, whilst also making you fairly safe. Doesn't give you the biggest bump in damage, but it's a good compromise
Notable.
between the two.
Yeah, notable. Either way, we have now got the stopwatch still in inventory rather for Sivern, who has got a fourth item, the Phantom Dancer, in now alongside those Lord Dom's regards. So very strong at this point is the Sivir, and even if you do get a grouped up fight, Sivir can be a win condition in and of herself. Or certainly in that last fight with Flawless, down the flash, but still has a GA and still has an ultimate, so not too worried about having lost the summoner yet.
No. So it's a tug of war again with these group fights, and Burning Court, they've been happy to play it a little bit slower. AXIZ, at this point, they basically said, look, Megamin, we can't have you lane against the Ahri. If the Ahri and the Vi come into the same lane, you're effectively dead at this point. So it's been happy enough to keep wave clearing that way. At least AXIZ managed to fix that lane allocation. But it really was those initial picks which made things so difficult. Now with the Azir not here, what can they do?
Trying to get a bit of a charm in, but that will prevent the Call of the Forge God coming through, actually. So that's the Keeper's Verdict to boot as well. So two big engage/disengage tools are down for AXIZ at the cost of the cease and desist. Sanctuary will get towards this mid lane wave, though, and all the while, you can see Ray Faki trying to shove in against the Azir, but with the amount of items they now have and a few levels, it's becoming increasingly difficult to make that shove as free as it once was.
I feel like Burning Core probably should have had a nose in towards that Baron at that point. I feel like when you've gotten rid of those cooldowns, you're not feeling that bad about things, but they're content to play it slow. They're trying to maybe play through this side lane win condition. It feels a little bit like, again, actually when the Hawks have had similar compositions where they've had this playmaking mid-jungle, but then they play some side laning things after, they've also kind of shown a tendency for this. Maybe this is actually more of an overall LJL Regency tensions. It is moments like this which I'm reminded, our top teams in the LJL, you really do need to separate them away from a couple of other teams, because this is typically how our LJL teams play. Again, they love to play methodically. They love to play slowly. So only on occasion where we see the very fast-paced games from our teams like Burning Core and AXIZ. And with everything on the line, I don't think you can blame them. One mistake potentially throws away an advantage, especially when you're getting very late into the game. At least there isn't an Elder to flip it over, but one big mistake and suddenly maybe AXIZ can stabilize, keep up their inhibitors and get themselves into a point of power. I mean, they have these Ornn items coming through now, basically onto everyone at this point, besides Dicey's Rakan and whatever. Who needs stats on supports, right? The base gets are good enough. But AXIZ, if you let them stabilize by taking a Baron, something like that, even with a huge gold advantage, maybe that's enough.
Maybe. And a reminder, both of these teams are playing off for the final spot in playoffs. Flawless goes over the wall. There's a cease and desist. That will mean nothing for the side of this Poppy who's dead. The mid-jungle does it again. They're going to try and make this count for even more. They'll get Yellow Yoshi to charge away at half HP, and with the jungle down, Burning Core can finally turn to Baron. Flawless goes over the wall and just commits.
Swamp's dead for 30 seconds. Even with the ultimates available from some of the rest of the team, this is going to be such an uphill battle for AXIZ.
It'll be a 4v4. The double teleports in, and Rayfaki will respond. Can they trade this one out? What can
how much can
Sanctuary
and Megaman do?
Down it goes. That's taken. The Baron is theirs. But what about the turnaround damage? It's already two. The book gets stacked indeed. Sanctuary over the wall is desperately trying to throw out burst fires, but they are pea shooters spitting into the storm that is Burning Core in this game, and they are on fire, and they will look to claim a 3-0 head-to-head against AXIZ, get that all-important game win, and look to secure a 6th place solo as they move into the last 2 games of the LJL regular season.
It's been a little bit hard fought. And you listen, this season, this split was one where AXIZ struggled so much, and then they started picking up a couple of wins. Maybe they could have made it, but Burning Core, at the death of the split, put them down into such a difficult position. They've lost that head-to-head in every single confrontation against Burning Core. They'd have to wait for just the utter miracles with Detonation Focus be having to lose versus AXIZ for them to come through. But with this one, Burning Core looking to close out the game.
It's such a difficult position. You lose this, and you need Burning Core to lose both of their other games. You need them to win both of your remaining games. AXIZ got a horrible, horrible run of it. It will be so difficult. Let's look at this replay because this is it. This is the death now.
Well, you don't have a Poppy ult to disengage stuff, and you need to buy time for Sanctuary and Mega Noon to do damage, because yeah, they have a range advantage. It doesn't actually matter when you're being run through like this, and this is the problem which I find when you're playing front to back with Sivir versus Zeri, when there's actually someone to hit with ricochets, because look how much damage these things do. Yuhi is really, really starting to pump out damage. This is a late game Sivir, so Sanctuary, Megman, they're not safe to do damage. They've not managed to get a kill between them, these two carries, and Burning Core, they have really dealt with these grouped up fights well. Every time they've come to the bigger confrontations, they've won.
They really have, and Dice at this point with that very nearly fully stacked Medjay is doing enough damage, and this is part of the problem, right? Zeri loves to play on the edge of other people's ranges. That's so hard to do safely when there's Ghost, when there's Ariel, when there's an on the hump from Sivir, when there's a Vi you can just point and click and charge you from 3 skeins away.
Oh,
Maybe this is the Hail Mary. Dicey's gone. Just deleted. It's a shuffle, but I don't think it's enough. There's a GA to boot. Keeper's Verdict will knock some people away, and at least it's a 1-for-1. Sivir dies as well.
The fuck is just heading the
But all the
Nexus!
way, fuck, he just murders it. It's done.
We go the Hullbreaker coming in clutch. We said it was a